Okay, please go ahead and get seated so we can get started with our next session. We're going to kick off this panel here right now. Talk loud.
Okay, everyone. As we've heard very often through the course of this workshop, the future of nuclear depends on having the right people in the right places as much as having the technology. This panel will explore how to overcome workforce challenges through targeted development, innovative training programs, and employer capacity development. I'll turn it over to Jimmy.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, or good morning still, right? My name is Jimmy McDonough. I am the Assistant Commissioner with the Utah System of Higher Education for Higher Education Workforce Programs, an office called Talent Ready Utah. We were created actually by Governor Cox in 2014 with the Boeing company coming to the state and really wanting pathway programs to funnel students and higher ed graduates into workforce. And so this is a great connection with nuclear because this truly is what, as an agency, we were built for and our purpose. We work in our system with 16 higher education institutions, 8 degree granting institutions, 8 technical colleges, and 1 community college in there as well. But we also work with the public education system as well in developing pathway programs and getting students into those pathways. I'd love to let my panel, which is amazing, to just give a brief introduction to your name and where you're representing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I'm Bethany Coates. I'm the CEO of BreakLine Education. Delighted to be here. Thank you to Governor Cox and team, to the INL team. Jimmy, thank you for the invitation, and to the WGA staff as well. Delighted to be here. BreakLine focuses on something that we call education for employment. So we're very focused on enabling Americans to transition into new opportunities in new sectors as quickly and efficiently as possible. We were founded about 10 years ago, and in that time have focused primarily on our military community. So huge amounts of work and thousands of outcomes for our veterans and military spouses. And we spent a lot of time on tech, defense tech, and now we're branching into nuclear. So delighted to be here. Happy to share more about our work, but most importantly, to share some thoughts around how we can help solve some of these acute workforce challenges within the advanced nuclear sector.
Sure.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. My name is Michelle Fussell. My title is Legislative Representative with the Iron Workers International. What I actually do is I am the State and Local Director of Government Relations. So I have the honor of working with governors, attorney generals, and state reps across the United States to work on policy to help get our members to work. I represent over 130,000 members in the United States. About 35,000 of those live in the Western states, and a quarter of those are all apprentices. So I'm excited to talk to you all today about our apprenticeship programs and how we can scale up and help you with the skilled workforce that you need.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Here we go. I'm Chris Hayter with High Tech Solutions. I'm one of the co-founders, and our position started off strictly as manpower with a shop of about 30 folks. And we have scaled up to grow quite a bit. And right now we're at 30 sites across the world right now, including the UK and Brazil, providing workforce all the way from project management, leadership, engineering support, just about everything you could think of that it takes to complete a nuclear project. So we've been around since 2003. I've been a part of the company, as we call it, a co-founding. We reincorporated in 2013 to kind of expand our scope from very specifically an Energy Northwest Columbia partner at the reactor not too far from here in Washington State. So we've been doing that since 2013, and we've been expanding across the world.
Awesome. Chris, my first question is for you. We had a great opportunity with High Tech to visit most of our degree granting institutions in Utah together. And one of the things that I thought that you shared and your team shared during those meetings was the the workforce need, and you kind of broke it down in 4 phases. Can you kind of share that? Because it was really insightful for us as we plan for a nuclear workforce.
Yeah, it's a lot more of it's a broad issue we face. As we've broken it down into 4, and you could take it down even further into subcategories of these 4, you have your regulatory licensing, right? We have to get sites ready for this. We have our, forgive me, then we have to figure out like construction, right? Which is going to be a lot of folks from unions, skilled trade, skilled craft, which requires a little more attention, as we saw in South Carolina and Georgia, where we had varying degrees of success getting those reactors online, followed by you have your maintenance, your service groups. And so you have to start building out these types of workforces to support the fleets that we hope to expand and build on. And then last but not least, obviously, there's an operational standpoint. So the utility itself. And I don't like to speak on behalf of the utilities, but I speak to the utilities daily. And our current reactors don't have enough operations support, don't have enough maintenance support. So we're already at deficit with our 90+ reactors operating today. And so when you look at all of these other areas from phase 1 through, call it these different phases, we're short everywhere. And regulatory and licensing doesn't grow on trees. That takes a lifetime of experience and career. So what we're finding is, in this great capitalist society we live in, is that the resources are being stretched between all sorts of new entities and companies. And so we're facing some pretty unique challenges, and we have to hit the accelerate button.
You know, Bethany, you guys do awesome with really developing high needed talent. And in Utah, where we have low unemployment, we have to tap into every single resource. We can't let any stone be unturned as we're looking for talent and developing talent and getting talent into our workforce. Can you talk a little bit about the ways and the programs that you have that are kind of getting our talent into that pipeline, and you're developing that workforce for us?
Oh, yeah. Of course, you bet. And I would just build on Chris's comments and, say out loud what everybody in this room knows to be true, which is the talent deficit is not just at the plant level. It's not just at the reactor level. It's also at the corporate level. I mean, these are complex businesses with tons and tons of different needs for professional salaried employees, and there is a deficit everywhere. And so I think it is really critical for us to start thinking about exactly how we're going to bridge those deltas today before it gets even worse. And one of the ways in which BreakLine does that is by attracting talent from adjacent areas and adjacent sectors. And for nuclear, we should be thinking very much about our military as an adjacent sector. It is the premier nuclear workforce in the country and in the world. And BreakLine has been working with this workforce for about 10 years. So we have about 25,000 people in our community, highly, highly curated, highly trained, and very ready and willing to jump into nuclear. There's never really been an opportunity before, right? Like, it's always been flying under the radar for the last couple of decades. This is our first moment to break out with this population of folks, and they're knocking at the door. So that's the very good news. When we think about how can we be the best possible partner to industry, we actually don't have to boil the ocean. We don't have to overcomplicate this. There are 5 metrics that matter. And when we think about and when we design our programs, we design around those metrics because that is what industry needs from us. The first one is time to fill. You've heard from every single panel here from yesterday through today saying workforce is the existential crisis issue for this industry. So time to fill matters. General Matter, Drew is here. We heard from Drew and Terry, Standard Nuclear, TerraPower, Nano Nuclear. They all right now have somewhere around 40 roles open. So it's actually at a manageable size today, but it's crucial for these small growing companies to fill these roles as quickly as possible. So time to fill. There are only 4 other metrics that matter. attrition. So by the end of the first year, how many folks have I lost? That's the mishire rate. Retention, are the people I hire staying and how long are they staying for? Performance, are they getting promoted? And then scalability. And one way to think about this is, what is my cost per hire? Hiring from an industry perspective is extraordinarily time consuming. It has a really high failure rate. It is one of the most vexing challenges for leaders today. So the cost per hire and the scalability are crucial. With the work that we've done in Utah, our cost per hire is $4,000 in a pilot year, and our time to hire is between 6 to 12 weeks. So that outperforms any workforce development initiative that I'm aware of, and that's in a pilot year. That's something that we should be able to reduce further over time as we scale. But if we design programs around exactly what the industry needs and is asking for, we can do it really efficiently, and we can use those taxpayer dollars in such a way that enables us to get a financial return within about a year or so, in terms of bringing job seekers into the workforce now as taxpayers.
Thank you. Michelle, from a labor perspective, can you kind of talk to us about what are those barriers and how are you addressing those barriers to upskill your labor workforce?
Well, obviously there are barriers coming into this industry. One of them is certification and licensure. One of the great things about our programs is that it's really not about the barrier of the workforce. It's about the predictability. We need to have some sort of timeline in order to provide these workers to you. We provide all of the training. An iron worker is an iron worker, whether they're building a high rise, they're maintaining an oil and gas facility, or they're coming to work on a nuclear plant. The difference is the certifications that are required on the nuclear facility, which we will provide. We just need to know it in advance. So it's not so much about our availability. We can upscale. We have to have predictability in order to be able to meet the standard. Right here in Idaho, we have a facility just 50 miles down the road that helps staff workers here in this facility and throughout the region. In Khmer, Wyoming, we had to upscale that out of Salt Lake City because we did not have the facilities there, but we were told in advance by the developer what their needs were going to be and how many hundreds of workers they were going to need. And so we trained those workers in Salt Lake and moved them into Wyoming. We're doing the same thing right now in North Dakota, being able to get ready to do mining and different operations there. So it's really about the predictability of the market and the stability of it for us to be able to provide workers.
Awesome. Chris, you're going to say something?
Yeah, very quickly. So nuclear power is a unique industry where you have both union and non-union working so closely. For example, at Columbia Station, we actually work under the ILWU for what would be considered the high risk portions of the projects. We also have our own, I actually have a union shop out of South Carolina. And so when we look at these problems and we talk about return on investment and these other things, when I take somebody off the streets, so to speak, right, non-nuclear, it takes us about 3 years to put them through enough qualification certification and get them enough time in field. So we're actually tackling an entirely new animal when we look at this and we talk about maybe a year being a possibility for return on investment. So it's a little bit different from other industrial settings and workforces, as you have such a unique blend from degreed to skilled trade to maybe specifically we talked about quality earlier. You don't necessarily need a degree, but you do need a lot of experience to be a quality assurance or quality control individual in nuclear power. You're talking more like 5 to 10 years minimum experience to do that. So we're already behind. So we talk about deficits. So we have to be creative in how we attack these problems. But I think both of these responses were actually wonderful.
So kind of for Michelle and you, Chris, one of the things I know that we've talked about a lot in Utah is that depending on the company that's coming in and is building, there's going to be a collaborative effort with unions. And so what does that look like, or what are some models that you've seen in building that relationship, building that partnership, maybe in states that don't have a huge union presence currently?
Well, answer really
Yeah.
quick firstly. Our membership is highly portable. We prefer local hire though. We prefer to have people from the community working on the projects that are in the community, which is why we're committed to a training program. We have a standardized training program across the United States. It is a 4-year program with classroom time and on-the-job training. There is no cost to the apprentice that's in the program. There is no cost to the taxpayer or the state or federal government. It is fully funded by the union and our joint management cooperation trust. So that means that our employers also sit on these boards and they determine the training that our members are going to receive. The other important thing to note is that our members are our members. But when they are dispatched out, they become the employee of the contractor. And so the contractor or developer calls us and tells us how many people they need, what certifications, what's licensure, what training they need, and we send them. If somebody doesn't work out, they send them back. We send them to someone else. If they need 200 people, we scale up to it. We had, like I said, in Wyoming, where we had that incident in Kansas, we had to scale up to 300 hiring workers on the Panasonic plant overnight, practically, and we did it. Some of it is by portability and some of it is by going in and heavily recruiting into the community. Most of it is portability and then recruitment so that we can place local hires. So those are things that we use to do that. And again, our training is standardized. So the member that gets dispatched here in Idaho has the same exact training as a member who's working at TVA in Tennessee or Georgia. So those are the same members that are working at Chris's plant there in South Carolina. So same training, same standards. And if you tell us you need something more in your certifications, we'll add it.
Instead. So Chris, one of the things when we visited the institutions, we really took a look at what were your high demand positions that you have as an organization. And then we looked at each of the institutions, be it the technical colleges, all the way around, and we kind of mapped where is that training and kind of what are your needs and like what are those gaps. We talked, because of experience is huge, we talked about co-ops, internships, and kind of those partnerships. Can you kind of talk about what does that collaborative effort look like between industry and training providers to make this successful?
First and foremost, what it looks like is hard work and actually boots on ground discussions. We have been to all but one major university in Utah. Clearly, we are currently out of Washington State, so we work closely with those universities. And now it's about getting out to the Mountain West and the West Coast in general. So we look at this problem we face there's a really good question actually asked earlier about what about the West, right? Where's our manufacturing supply chain? Where's our fuel sources? Where's our right? Well, fuel we actually do have in Eastern Washington, but where is the West in all of this? Because clearly the East and the South have far outweighed us. So when we come back to these problems that we face, in delivering the workforce in partnership with whether it's a trade school, whether it's a university, a junior college, or a 4-year university, we have to get there. We have to be able to work with them and explain a very foreign entity, which is nuclear power, commercial nuclear power, especially here in this Mountain West region, is that there really isn't anything for us to point out and say this is what is good, right? And so what we do have though is we have companies who are willing to say, well, what do we, or in universities and other groups, and the state, and Governor Cox himself leading out with Operation Gigawatt, is that how do we actually solve this problem? And this is everybody has to participate type of problem. But from the commercial side, we're more than willing to decentralize, for example, our announced training facility. The idea of a training facility is what it started as. And now we're far more focused on more of what we'd call a campus, bringing adjacent industry, bringing in unique partners. We have a very unique partnership with the Department of Defense, for example, probably similar to what BreakLine's doing. And so we have been piloting that program now for a year. And we brought in our first 4 folks through what's called SkillBridge, and it's been very effective. No question, our return on investment will probably be shorter. But when we go from university, let's take Snow College, for example, I need to be able to see what Snow College is capable of. I can't just assume because they're a university that they'll be good at what they do. And as my team of experts, both union and non-union, walked their facilities, they were shocked at what a great university that is and what great equipment they have. All they need is a curriculum of what commercial nuclear power or DOE nuclear power requires.
Awesome. And I think one of the things to add to that, I think it was really great, as we toured all those facilities, also looking at ways that as an industry, you could support them, of sending your experts out to, show what welding would look like different, in these different realms. Again, because we don't necessarily have all of the resources and the expertise. Also want to add, in Utah, one of the things, this is a multi-layer approach. We work with the Office of Energy Development in creating their curriculum for our high schools, looking at our CTE pathways, as we're looking at, we want every high school senior to have either a workforce readiness credential or a college readiness credential. And so looking at what are those certifications that also align with industry as well. Bethany, I want to talk to you a little bit more about, as we kind of look at what are those adjacent industries, as we look at upskilling that we can tap into or that we can develop and reskill with.
You bet, Jimmy. And so the way that I think about workforce development for nuclear, in my mind, it has two phases to it. The first one is immediate needs and addressing immediate needs as quickly as possible, because if we can't do that, we're not going to get to that hockey stick growth that everybody in this room wants to see. And so immediate needs, from my perspective, has to include attracting talent from adjacent spaces. And so the most obvious ones, in addition to the military, I will be poaching all day long from defense tech and defense primes. I will be poaching all day long from the broader energy sector. I will be poaching all day long from aerospace. All of these spaces have really, really fabulous talent for the sector. However, electric vehicles, Tesla and Rivian are bleeding talent right now. We should be all over those companies. And robotics is a really fertile hunting ground for nuclear. And then main companies as well. Main companies are actually, from a talent perspective, under stress. And so we can effectively poach talent from those spaces too. And this has got to be part of the solution, because speed is so important here. And so, yes, we have to also have a phase two, which is continuing to invest in a longer tail of ground up building of this talent. But we don't get there until we fulfill the immediate needs first.
Yeah. Michelle, kind of transitioning to...
Jimmy, can I add that one industry that was forgotten? You know what my favorite employee is? Farm boy, high school education, farm gal, somebody who knows hard work. Our industry doesn't require a degree for everything we do. I will tell you, people with work ethic, easily found in rural America. If you want to know who's operating our power plants today, it's those people. It's the blue collar. It's those individuals who grow up knowing how to take apart a diesel engine, put it back together. Yeah. But may because of circumstance, choice, whatever it may be, didn't decide to go the 4-year or 2-year degree route. So I can tell you 60+% of my workforce are people from rural America. And as we continue to look for the best talent across every, turn over every stone, that's one area I want to make sure we don't forget. And as we go through the Mountain West, this is what the Mountain West is comprised of. Yes, we have wonderful academic institutions from all 3 of these great states, Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho. But we cannot forget who's going to build these things. And if we go over into the ranks of the iron workers and the unions, that's what you're going to find is hardworking Americans brought up through amazing trade programs.
Yeah, agreed. And I would add to that too, and Bethany hit on it, we have an amazing military program as well. We also have an amazing female recruitment program as well now. Women are actually amazing iron workers. They kick ass. They are really great at it, and we've really focused on it. We've done a lot with pre-apprenticeship programs and pre-training to make sure we can get people placed. But Chris is correct. Where are these projects happening too, by the way? they're in rural areas. And so we're not just sticking to the cities. We have to be out looking for the farm boys and the veterans who've just come back. The average age of an apprentice now is 28 years old, used to be 19. So this is not a first career choice for people, it's a second. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. One of the things that we struggle with as we look at this new workforce is in some areas, like in Utah, the opportunities don't currently exist. And so it's kind of hard to train or prepare or develop and not have something for them, as we're talking to college graduates or, we're developing that. And so can you talk a little bit more? Because I know there's, from all of you, there are pieces there, so I don't want to give that away. I want you to answer it. What can we do, or how do we provide those opportunities and keep people engaged as we get them trained and up to speed?
Well, I mean, what's critical for us is actually having a job to put them on. That is correct. We can put them in a classroom for 1 to 4 weeks every year. But if they don't get their hours in the field, they're not getting that on the job training. So that's part of the reason why we have a portable workforce. Yes, we're going to move them around as needed in Salt Lake. We have lots of jobs right now on the airport. We have a lot going on in Park City that requires travel. Again, we have almost 200 members up in Wyoming. So these are things that make our workforce portable, but also puts the people in place to train those local people, so that the people in Wyoming can come back to Utah, and Wyoming is now working on those jobs. That is the goal. That is what we want to do. So yes, that comes back to my predictability. We do need predictability. I have the availability. I need the predictability in the jobs.
So anything?
Did you want to go?
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation that we're in, because I actually believe that if we can show as a tri-state area that we have the workforce available, we can get the industry to come here and the jobs will come here. A really great example, a very obvious example of that is California with the tech industry. But a really scrappy example, a state that is hustling hard, is Ohio. And they just announced a program where they are providing employers with a $15,000 stipend for every STEM employee that they have relocate from out of state into the state of Ohio. So there are lots and lots of great examples out there about how we can currently leverage the workforce that exists in our states, but also draw talent that we need to fill roles that we don't have the adequate pipeline for. And I think that if we can do that, we can relocate the industry here, which I think should be our goal. We want advanced nuclear to be headquartered across these 3 states. Showing that we have the workforce is going to be a crucial step in enabling those companies to have the security that they need to make that happen.
Well, that's a touchy subject for me. My oldest moved to Columbus, Ohio 2 years ago because she got a stipend of $15,000
Yes.
from the Honda battery plant. And she has not been at home. So Governor, can you please bring her home?
Yeah.
So my challenges are a little bit different, maybe similar to Union in some way, is that I have 30 plus utilities that we'll be working with this fall. The workforce has been delivering the new fuel for the past few months, putting the fuel in the fuel vaults or in the spent fuel pool to go into outage. We're doing this across the world, or we're storing fuel. Eastern Washington, Columbia Station will be storing the spent fuel with our partners at Holtec. We're going to be doing that we've been doing that in Brazil for the past 2 years. We're another year left in Brazil. We're doing this in the UK right now. We're actually storing fuel, welding the canisters, doing all these things. So I have a problem. I can't find enough good people that I can put through the appropriate training programs, which is why a part of it is that my training facility currently in Pennsylvania is tiny, and I can only put through certain certifications currently as we've been finishing off our quality program. Now that our quality program's done, NQA1, Appendix B, everything we needed to do that, we can now certify our own training. We don't need a partner to do that any longer. Part of coming to Utah and relocating my company to Utah was to have a greenfield state, a state with the appropriate legislative leadership, great initiatives like Talent Ready, where Jimmy and you and Vic are working to build something quite amazing. And that all comes back down to leadership of the state. And so when you have the right people, you know, we are leaving Washington for a reason, because there is somewhere better. And so I'm short in one contract, 84 individuals as of this morning on my staffing call with my staffing team. It's 84 people that some other company is going to fill, frankly, with lesser quality. Because when you work for my company, you are the best. And that's plain and simple. So therefore, I'm willing to not take people on just to fill a role. So this is why I want to be in the Mountain West. This is why I want good people who care and want to have a lifetime position, who want to work for one company for 40 years and then call it a day, a company that'll take care of them. These things kind of have fallen by the wayside in America. You go to a tech company and you hop 7 tech companies and you hope you get one of the big ones and get your company IPOs and you get lucky, right? It's like we're rolling the dice. But no, when we talk about workforce development, it's just another word for being in the business of people. And I care about those who work for me. In fact, next year, we're going to be announcing our employee stock ownership program to deliver to our people that as we succeed, that they succeed with us, that all boats in the harbors rise, from my brand new technicians who have varying degrees of skill sets and experience to the people who've been with me for 25 years now from the beginning of the company. So workforce development isn't just providing that we need the jobs. It's actually having companies who are worthy of their efforts and unions that are worthy of their efforts. And so as we're talking about this, we need to remember that we're talking about our neighbors, our children, and our children's children. We are at deficit, so therefore we need to stop the bleeding now so that we can fix it for future generations. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with this. So I need people yesterday. Last fall, I was 300 people short. This fall, I'm 84. It's a little slower this fall. Next spring, I can tell you right now, I could take 600 more people if I had the right people and the right participation. But they have to be that. They have to be the right people. So, and I think here with Governor Cox and Governor Little and all of those who are participating in this, we are on that trajectory. We don't need to wait. This isn't, on my end, it's not chicken and egg. We already we're short.
Yeah.
So you add 50 more reactors. My goal, so you know, Governor Cox, is 20 reactors in Utah and at least half that in each Wyoming and Idaho. That's my goal, and that's Holtec's goal. And so we need a lot of jobs. And so we better darn well create the facilities and work together and stop working against one another.
As we kind of, and it's probably going to be our last question, that way we can have some time for audience questions. You know, we've talked about the age of apprentices kind of going up. You kind of talked about that workforce that you need currently. How do we make nuclear more attractive to the younger generation? How do we attract them in high school and kind of make this, for lack of a better word, sexy again? You know, how do we make them want to come into this industry and consider opportunities here?
I think you're talking about the new version of Governor Cox's shorts.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a broader topic here, which has been touched on before, which is that the American public at large is not tracking nuclear yet. And we're all excited about it, but it's kind of been mothballed in the mind of the average American for so many years that one of the most important things that we can do to start attracting that interest is a very aggressive, very proactive storytelling campaign. And we ended up doing a ton of focus groups and research within our nuclear trained community. And I was very surprised by what they told us, the reasons why they wouldn't pursue careers in nuclear. And I think it's helpful for this room to be aware, even for that community, the veterans had reservations that I think the American public is likely to share at the outset that we need to speak to. The first one for these vets is, I've already done it before. There's nothing more for me to learn. And I know that Drew DeWalt would take issue with that. Like going from the Navy into General Matter would be a very, very different and really interesting career path. We have to tell that story. There's a whole issue around mission that I think is one of this industry's most compelling advantages. Whether it's environmentalism, whether it's national security, whether it's the business model, whether it's the tech, there is a mission-driven element here that will speak to the type of prospective employee that the industry needs and is looking for. But we have to tell them that story. We have to light that fire, to your point, Jimmy. There's a question around pacing. And somebody spoke to it earlier in the conference. Like, is this, for a high intensity individual, are they going to be able to hit their stride in this industry? And we have to be able to answer that question with a resounding yes. And then some questions around geography as well. But I thought I wanted to illuminate some of those reservations because I think that we should use them to construct a very compelling communication strategy around this industry. That's going to be the precursor to starting to develop more interest and get some of that, incoming interest back into the sector. But passing it along to my co-panelists as well.
Well, I mean, as you know, iron workers are focused on construction, but I will tell you this, a nuclear facility has a unique opportunity for our member. They don't want to jump around the country. They will, but they don't. And I will say, we work in all 4 phases of the construction, as you were talking about: site prep, construction, manufacturing, and O&M. If we can offer an iron worker a job that he's going to stay at for the rest of his life, or she, sorry, they love that. I have workers at Intel in Hillsboro, Oregon, who have spent their whole careers there and are about to retire. And we're still dispatching members out there. So a nuclear facility, has a very unique opportunity and is appealing to a member because this member is going to have steady work for 25 years. He's going to build it, he's going to maintain it, and he's going to make sure everything is safe in and around it. And that is what we're going to provide.
There it goes. So user error, I'm sure. I get it. I've been in nuclear power since 2007, by complete chance. And my first job was mopping floors at Columbia Station, and I met the gentleman from Hayter. And when I met them, I was just there to pay off school debt, right? That's all I wanted to do. And I had no connection to the plant. My father had married a wonderful woman who taught dance lessons to the engineers and the radiation protection folks at Columbia Station. And they have temporary positions for outages. And so I go there, by chance, they put me up on what's the elevation 606, which was the refuel floor of a boiling water reactor. And I met these really unique people from Hayter. And there was the big companies there. There's the institutional companies, the Westinghouses, the General Electrics, the Framatomes, the Holtecs. And I saw this little company who was having fun, who liked their jobs. Not saying the other groups don't, but that they were building something that I wanted to be a part of. And I was willing to remap my entire life and pitch to these gentlemen. I actually got right of first refusal to buy out one of the partners when I signed on with them. I said, I want to own this company someday because I think we can do better. Because I think we have allowed this to become such small pockets of the US. And everywhere you go, there's a nuclear power plant for the most part. Better roads, better schools, right? Better tax revenues, great institutions. I hire all of my engineers right from the backyard of Westinghouse, to be honest with you. And I, while I'm appreciative of these things, and I'm so grateful to work with these wonderful companies, we have right now how many startups in our industry? So it isn't just about education about nuclear power. This new generation, these 16 to 30-year-old folks, and even the older, they're looking for stability. They're looking for comfort. They want to know that they're going to work for an employer worthy of their efforts for their life. It's a big thing to ask of somebody. So I think it's less about nuclear power. Yes, we have education to do on what spent nuclear fuel really is. Really what spent nuclear fuel is, just for everybody, is a gold mine. And it's jobs all in itself. It's its own little economic ecosystem. But besides that, back to people, we have an opportunity to prove to people that we're worthy of their efforts. We're worthy of their careers, their children's careers, and so on. And so we need to have companies that treat them well. Startups are They're exciting, they're fun, but we need companies who are hiring people in to deliver an atmosphere that they want to grow up in and they want to retire from. So as we go out and we start talking to these people, that's what we're really doing, is we're selling them on a story that you get to work for a great company that gets to change the world. We're in a renaissance if we allow it to be one, and they get to be a part of that. So when we're out there selling them, we can talk about fuel. Yes, we got to answer all of these questions directly, all the potential negatives or perceived negatives of our industry, but really you want to work for great American companies. That's what you want to work for. And you want that for your neighbors. And for me, the standard, do you know who my shareholder is? It's every single person in my company. And I think as we go forward and we do this, if we can paint that picture to the youth, it's already proven. They're about lifestyle. They're less about the top dollar. And we build out an amazing opportunity for them to grow up in. And that's, again, I hate to say this, maybe we've kind of failed ourselves in our generations, but we certainly shouldn't fail the next generation. This is our time to deliver to them the America that they deserve. And so this industry gives us that. From the unions to the companies who are coming into this, because commercial nuclear power will chew you up and spit you out. It's a tough industry. The utilities are challenging and wonderful places to be, but they change from utility to utility. The standards change. And this is what we get to do from the unions to all of the private industry, is we get to go rebuild what the new standard will be. And as we do that, that attracts people. Because if our standards are high, people want to be a part of that.
As you can see, we could talk all day about this topic, and we have more questions, but not enough time. But I do want to give some time for questions from you. So some.
Matt McVicker, just going back to kind of the DoD as best-in-class model. So one of the things, and I love hearing the, yes, we want long-term workforces. So DIU within DoD has embraced through Gig Eagle, which is basically it's I think it's a classified program now, but what it was billed as originally was an ability to survey the entirety of the U.S. workforce and say, for a surge need, these are the skills that we could drop into factories or solicit. But it also leverages the gig economy, and you're kind of meeting the workers where they are at present. So I'm curious, across all of your organizations, how are you rostering the skills either within your state or within your different jurisdictions? How do we make sure there's some sort of list or an ability to track? And maybe that comes out of universities, but I just don't think we can rely on LinkedIn to get us there, especially given the type of workers we're seeking.
I'll start, and then I'll kind of hand it over. It, as Bethany was talking about, it's really hard because the workforce doesn't exist. So typically for us, we would go to our workforce services department and we'd say, hey, give us the data. But the data doesn't really exist yet in the state. And so that makes some things, a little bit challenging, in that part. When we work with employers, we're talking to them about what are their needs, what are you seeing for these different phases? What would it take for your employment? What are your current demands? What are your needs? What are your position requirements? And what are those qualifications? So we're mapping all of that out by each of those employers that we're having those conversations. We're then going to our institutions to figure out how does that map with our certifications, with our degree requirements. And so we're kind of collecting and pulling all that data. But again, it makes it a little bit difficult because it's not an existing workforce. So we're kind of piecing that together to kind of, and then also looking at other states that have done it, to kind of get some data from what were their lessons learned, what were their needs or what they didn't have. And so we're kind of pulling it from different pieces from our strategy.
I will say, and this is going to be a little bit different, but we do have a robust program with the military called Almost to Hard Hats. We have that pipeline. We also work extensively with tribal nations. I worked with Representative Cole this last year in appropriations to make sure we had pre-apprenticeship funding back on tribal lands. So that's another pipeline that we are utilizing. And then one that will not affect the nuclear industry directly, but we work with a lot of DOCs in many states and run reentry programs. So we're able to take members that are coming back into the community, reentering, and put them into apprenticeship jobs. They will not be able to get TWIC cards, but we will be able to fill them in other positions and move our iron workers that are able to get security clearances and TWIC cards into these facilities. So we're using that as a pipeline as well. So that is that's a few of the ways that we're doing that. And I will say, and I know this is kind of off topic, reentry programs are my favorite. We have an 80% reduction of recidivism, and being able to work those members back into our community and give them real careers and real jobs really makes a big difference. And then again, it frees our members up to come to facilities like this.
Okay, well, I can't give up my trade secrets. We've built our pipelines over 2 decades, but I will say this, it's plain and simple. There's a lot of hard work. There isn't a great automation for this right now. There isn't a LinkedIn that fixes this problem, to your point, it's well said. So it's boots on ground. Like I said, I would challenge every company in here, startup, commercial, whatever it is, if Utah or Idaho or Wyoming are on your radar, go talk to the universities and the trade schools. What you find is there's little pockets. The trade school, oh, hey, there's this program. I call him my son. He was a homeless kid from Ogden, Utah, actually from Idaho. His mom dropped him off in Ogden. He ended up coming and staying with me for a couple of years. And he got into a workforce development program that's not very well recognized to get him back on his feet. As he graduated high school with us, we needed somewhere for him to go, but his grades weren't quite there. And we ended up getting him into a program. It's, I think it's in South Weber. And it had a welding group. And I went and met with these guys because I like I didn't know much about welding. And as it turns out, they were brilliant. And they have a wonderful welding. So Keaton was able to go to that in his second year, and he's got several. He's talking to unions. He's talking to my company, of course. But you have to go and find the pockets, and so you have to do the work. And I wish that wasn't the case. We have an AI software we've been working on that's going to help us quantify some of these things, but it still doesn't take away from the fact you're just going to have to be boots on ground finding these pockets.
I would just add 2 comments to what's already been said. One is the availability of talent during surges depends partially on the employer or the partner's ability to stay engaged with relevant populations all the way throughout, so that it's not a cold outreach. They're not learning about it for the very first time. This is something that they have sort of a low-lying level of awareness and knowledge about. And when the time is right, then you strike. And that's part of what makes the hiring process so efficient. A couple of ways that BreakLine does that, we actually Mike, we interviewed Raj Shah, who was one of the managing directors of DIU under Ash Carter years ago. He's responsible for a lot of the innovation that's happened out of that shop since then. But we do that as part of a podcast, and those conversations are live events that our entire community is invited to. It's that kind of cadence that keeps people engaged so that you can reach out when the time is right. However, there's also a really important component here for employers. Can you raise your hand if you have ever hired someone? Can you raise your hand if you would feel comfortable translating a veteran's resume? Like, would you be able to translate a veteran's resume? This is an articulation of what happens in our workforce, where hiring managers are primarily civilians who are not as comfortable interpreting the resumes and backgrounds of folks from really different types of work experiences. And so I think that there's also, there should be a low-level ongoing training and support for employers who want to find top talent wherever it exists, but it may take a little bit of extra effort when we don't already have the familiarity with all of the relevant populations.
We'll add one other thing. We have developed in Utah, it's called the Utah Talent Hub. We did a soft launch a couple of weeks ago, but should do a major launch October 2nd after our next board meeting. And so we've developed a system that we've built that will match students with employers, specifically looking at O-Net skills and classifications and making direct matches based off of the skills students have and what the employer needs. But also with that system, we're also looking at connecting professors with industry for projects, connecting students with employers for internships, connecting students with students. So it's a kind of a multifaceted system that we've created that does a lot of matching behind the scenes. But really, we wanted to create a one-stop shop for this system for all of Utah. That way, one employer didn't have to go to all 16 institutions. They could go to one spot, and they would be able to make those connections both for student pipeline and for projects like that. So that would be another thing.
I have a question for Michelle on construction capacity. So in this surge demand, we saw a big push following the CHIPS Act on constructing all these fab facilities. Are you seeing those maturing now to where that the construction know-how can be transferred into this industry, or is that still at full throttle?
It's actually, that's a kind of a loaded question, to be honest with you. We started building the facilities. We entered phase 1 in Columbus, Ohio on Intel. We have, we have the facility in Arizona running. Intel in Oregon is at full capacity. And the problem is they're starting to scale back now. So I don't anticipate seeing further phases on some of these projects. We have had 3 battery plants already being pulled off the shelf for this year, totaling about $12 billion in construction over 3 states. So there is room. I will tell you that right now. If we shifted a lot of our training into the energy sector about a decade ago. We were already doing this work, but specifically getting certifications in wind, solar, nuclear. I'm sure you all aware of how far advanced Canada is in the nuclear field. We have a specific program in Canada called the Red Seal program, and iron workers are run through it. We can easily transfer that down here. So it comes back to the predictability of the jobs. We see the funding coming in this industry. We saw it, a couple of years ago, and the states moving towards this. And so that's why, we see some of our shifting in our certification process and our apprenticeship standards. We have the capacity and the availability to move a workforce into the nuclear industry. Yes.
Any other questions?
Skill like bias government on its own is hard. It's hard. So how do you guys build some pretty robust programs?
I can kick that off. So just using our pilot year with Utah as an example, Utah funded BreakLine's workforce development program in the state. And then essentially said, hey, you're the expert. We are here to support you, but go do your thing. BreakLine embeds with industry. And we do that so that we can really deeply understand what the talent needs are, what are the skill sets, what are the interests, what's the background, what's the experience that you need. And then we work in the flow of business to identify, train, and connect the appropriate talent for those roles. It's the type of connective tissue that is missing right now between our higher education sector and training programs in general, and actually that last mile of education that gets people hired. So the United States, I think, is the best in the world at fundamental upskilling and reskilling. Where we miss is the last mile of education, like actually getting that trained, developed person into the role. And that is where this public-private partnership has been really, really productive and fruitful in Utah. And that's the type of collaboration, Drew, that I would love to see more of.
I think I would add, Drew, that I think one of the things, as I get to travel, is what is unique about Utah is that we're extremely and highly collaborative as a state. And so it makes it very easy for us to be able to pull partners together. I mean, that's one of the primary things that we do as an office is really convene and to figure out, with our legislators and other offices of how we can collaborate. We realize, as a system, we don't have all the expertise. That was one of the things, we can only go so far. And so we have to partner. We have to partner with public education and figure out what are those barriers that we can break down. And so I think it's something that's very unique. I won't say completely unique, but I think that we have to our advantage in Utah, that it's just something that's how we do work, is bringing those partners together and figuring out and having those crucial conversations and those hard conversations and being able to bring those partners in of what are the obstacles, what are the barriers, and what do we have to do. And I think that's been one of the interesting things with this of, how do we work this out with unions, and how do we bring them to the table? How do we bring in our public education system for CTE coursework and make sure it's meeting what the needs are for industry? They're not easy questions. There are systems and bureaucracy that we have to go through, but we have to come to the table and have those hard conversations and kind of say, this isn't working for industry. And so I think it's something that we're good at as a state, and that we'll keep doing, and we just want to make sure that industry continues to engage for us to have those hard conversations. I think our time is up, so I want to thank you guys, but definitely feel free if there's any other questions that you want to ask to grab us afterwards. So thank you guys so much.
Got our panelists for our last session up here, and we'll get going.